Okay, we are on day 2 of lesson 4.2. And day 2 of this particular lesson is where we are going to have more than one variable term within the equation, and now they're going to be on different sides of the equation. If you look at the board, look at your screen, and if you look at the equation that I have to the left, these are problems similar to what we were doing yesterday, in which I have two terms with the same variable that are also on the same side of the equation. So for these, I can just simply simplify. 8h plus 11h is going to give me 19h. Everything else is going to come straight down, and then you would solve as you normally do for a two-step equation. What we're doing today, starting with day 2 of lesson 4.2, is we now have variable terms. They are still like terms, but now they're on different sides of the equation. So now I can't just simply add them together. What I have to do is I have to move one of the terms to the other side of the equation. So what I've told you in class is I typically move the smaller term, the smaller number. That would mean 8h. So I am going to subtract 8h on the left-hand side, which cancels these out, and I'm also going to subtract 8h on the right-hand side. Now for my next step, now that my 8h's are gone, I bring down my 5, and notice this minus sign in front of it. It doesn't just disappear. It comes down, and that becomes a negative 5. So I would have negative 5 equals 11h minus 8h gives me 3h, and then I also drop down the minus 14. Now this looks like a two-step equation. So from here, what we would need to do is we need to get the 3h by itself, so we are going to add 14 to cancel this out. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Negative 5 and a positive 14, a negative and a positive, you're actually going to subtract. So 14 minus 5 gives me 9. It is going to be a positive because 14 was larger. On my right-hand side, all I have left is 3h. And now to get h by itself, we are going to divide by 3 on both sides of the equation. So 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. 3 is the value of h. There's our first example. If we look at the next problem, we have 25 plus q equals 1/2 q minus 3. Look at your two q values. They're on different sides of the equation. We have to move one of them to the other side. So again, I usually move the smaller one. This q here, if you wanted to, you could put a coefficient of 1. It's 1q. On the right-hand side of the equal sign, I have 1/2 q, which is actually smaller. So that is the one that I am going to move. Those cancel out. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So now we will simplify. I haven't used the 25 yet. That comes down. 1q minus 1/2 q leaves me with 1/2 q. And all of that is equal to negative 3. Again, notice my minus sign. It doesn't just go away. It drops down and acts as a negative. From here, we need to get the 1/2 q by itself. So I need to move the constant that's on the same side, which is 25. There's no sign in front of 25, so that's understood to be positive. So we are going to do the opposite. We are going to subtract or make that negative 25. Those will cancel. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So now if I see what I have left over, left-hand side, I still have 1/2 q equals, and now look at your numbers. Both of those are negative. If you have two negatives, you're actually going to add those together. That gives me 28, and that's going to be negative as well. Very last part. 1/2 in q is multiplication. So normally the opposite of multiplying is to divide. But in this case, we have a fraction. We don't divide fractions. What we do instead is we multiply by the reciprocal, so times 2 over 1. These will cancel out my 2's. That will leave me just q. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other, so we are going to multiply by 2 over here. A negative times a positive is a negative, and 28 times 2 gives me 56, so that the value of Q is negative 56. Pay attention to how I've shown the work. You do need to be showing your work exactly like this in class. And good luck.